Or what you have on here is not what's up on there. I have no idea how it works. But this young gentleman here who's going to introduce himself, his name is Matt, is going to be my helper because I really don't know how to make this work, and Matt has it all figured out. So I'm Lori Clark. Like I said, I taught for many years in a cornfield. I'm from upstate New York. That's the part near Canada, not the part near New York City. It's about 5.5 hours from New York City, much closer to Niagara Falls. And so he's so good at this. You do, I have to look there and there at the same time? This is beyond me. So we're going to start off here. How many of you are not true beginners? That you've dabbled? Okay. So if you are a beginner, you've got a lot of resources here to help you out. I'm going to ask you to just give me one thing you think is super important, like 5 words or less. One thing that is super important for a basic, because this is back to basics. That's the thing. If you only could do one, if you only had to remember one thing and you had to share one thing, what would the one thing be you want beginners to remember? Beginners in a TPRS CI sort of an approach. It might be something that you learned right at the beginning and you're like, wow, that changed my world. Or maybe it's something that you picked up as you went along. The challenge is about 5 words or less. And you can repeat what somebody else said. It's good for people to hear it, Karen.
You might have to let go of old methods.
Great advice. Oh, would somebody be the secretary? Is somebody interested in secretarying? Oh, we have a recording, so I guess we don't really have to. But if you would like the secretary, these would be good things to remember. You might have to let go. Yeah. You might have to let go. Jason.
So I would say find your voice. Because I go to a workshop and think I had to be that way, and then I had to find my own voice.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Acquisition takes a long time.
Yes.
Make a connection first.
Make a connection first.
Keep it in the target.
Oh, okay. Poor secretary. We're going too quickly. This is another challenge. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So let's let this sink in. Let's go back while he's catching up. Karen's was?
Might have to let go.
You might have to let go. This is a tough one. If you've made any lessons over the years that you hate to let go of, this is a tough one, and it sometimes comes down to you saying to yourself, I'm just going to let go this year, but next year I'm going to do it if I really want to. And give yourself permission to do that. Because 1 year of children will survive if they don't get your favorite Spain lesson, which was my problem. I had a lot of trouble with this one. Okay, now we're not in order, but Ashley's was?
Keep it in the target language.
Keep it in the target language. Now that's not just good advice, it really is a skill. It's a skill, and if that's something you think you want to work on, listen today through that lens. So I guess what I'm asking you to do here is to listen to these basics that people have found important. Think of 1 or 2 that you really think you want to work with, and look at everything you hear today and see today through that lens. How can this particular advice help me with that? So what is it I'm going to hear and see today that might help me with letting go? Because I love my curriculum and I don't really want to let it go. I mean, it's our baby, a lot of times, especially if you are the only one teaching that particular subject. So think of it through that lens. And can you keep it in the target language? That's a challenge for a lot of us all the time. So what are you hearing and seeing today that will help you bring it through that lens? All right, Derek's was?
Acquisition takes time.
Takes time, yeah. And this one I think has 2 aspects to it. The first one is, what do I hear and see that proves that to me? Because a lot of us, it didn't take as long as it did for other people. Or we can't remember how long it took because, like in my case, it was so long ago. I don't really, always remember how long it took me to become somewhat proficient. And then, how do you explain that to your students and your parents and your administration? All right, so listen for those things today if that's a challenge. Okay, now Naomi's was? Did you have one yet?
I'm kind of new at all this.
Yay!
I went to Dunkerton for the first time, and I didn't know what CI was until last fall.
Yes, Dunkerton is like the code word here today. If everybody goes like that, it's like
code word, town of 700.
Yes, code word. So it's, people are like, the eagle has landed. The code word here is, were you at Dunkerton? Yeah.
So I'm like 4 months in. I
Yay!
prepare a story with like a slideshow that my colleague that's here helped me with.
Awesome.
But the kids were like, that wasn't your cup of tea. You weren't really comfortable. But I tried, and they moved forward, and we had pom-poms, and we had timers.
Yeah, and that you have enough of a relationship, a connection with your kids, all right, that they got that.
And eventually we wrote one about pets in our classroom, and the other faculty members gave me like pictures of their pets. So my French ones all wrote a little story.
Oh.
And then my poor cat died, and all the kids were like, Shadow's dead. And I was
No.
so I'm trying, but I'm really, really new.
That's okay. We are all trying. Trust me. Trust me. So, who is this? Test your memory. John, yeah. And John's was about make the connection first. Get the connection first. Okay, whose advice have we missed? Okay.
Don't overthink it, but in parentheses, as a native speaker.
Ah.
As I'm a native speaker. So don't overthink it as I'm teaching it.
Yes.
And don't overthink it as I'm planning.
As you're planning. No, that's a really, really good advice. Is don't overthink. Most teachers are good thinkers, and that's our strength. In fact, oftentimes we're better at the designing of things than at the implementation of things because we love to design. And you can overthink this and lock yourself in before you try. So we're going to practice some of that. Okay. And did you give me yours first?
I have it. I was just going to say, try one thing.
At a time. One thing at a time. Baby steps. Little bitty pieces. So that's why I'm asking. Think about one of the things you hear here that you think is basic. Just one. And then try looking at the rest of the day through that lens. Now, you may get partway through the day and hear a better basic skill and go, oh, man, now I want to look at everything through this lens. Go for it. But if you try to look at everything you hear today, you'll lose your mind. You really will. All right. Anything else that you feel super, super important as you went through and you went, oh, I wish I had thought of this at the beginning?
I know one of the things that I look at is that don't try and put so much new vocabulary in one story that you just overwhelm them completely.
Yes. A little at a time. Less is more. Less is more. Less is more. And when you do less is more, then you come back to Jason's point, which is developing your own voice. When you try to do what everyone else is doing, you lose yourself in it. And when you slow down and you do less is more and just evolve little by little, then you grow into that comfort zone that you're comfortable with. But it's sometimes so exciting that people jump in. So just out of curiosity, those of you who've tried this, how many people went to a workshop or went to a week and then just jumped in and said, I'm doing it? Okay. How many of you said, my first toe, then my second toe, then my third toe? That was me. It took me about 4 years to really get into the whole thing. And I was really kind of almost all the way there. I was doing a lot of the things that were already part of the program, but I couldn't bring myself to let go of what I had been doing enough to start it. All right, so we've got some basic pieces. And Matt, if you could come up here and help me a little bit. I'm going to try to bring one of these up here. Is it this one? Or is it this one? It's this one. Can you help me get that one on the screen and be able to use it?
Lori, I would say that I went all in and failed and then went back to and then gradually moved back.
And that is probably, thank you so much, Matt, that is probably 98% of the people. And so what we really want to do is to make sure that if you try something and it doesn't go the way you want it, that you don't disappear and step back and don't keep trying. Because you're going to hear a lot of quotes, but some people frequently say, if it's worth doing badly at first. Okay? Now, maybe this doesn't apply to anyone in here. It's quite possible that none of you are like this. But I have met a lot of teachers who are, in actuality, secret perfectionists. And of course, we hold ourselves to a higher standard than anyone else. And if we can't do it perfectly well, all right, then we would prefer not to do it at all. And it's in all aspects of our life, not just in teaching. But very often, teaching is the one place in life that we can have a lot of control, so we really have this sense of perfection about it. And this is a message that we give without realizing it. So one of the things that we need to do in order to make the connection with our kids is to not just talk the talk. We need to walk the walk. So what I'm trying to do in this presentation is walk a walk with you that you do with your kids. We're starting out at the beginning. This is interactive. I need to let the kids know at the beginning that this class is going to be different than every other class they have ever taken in their life, except for possibly orchestra or chorus. And I start out by saying, that as a teacher, my job is to be the conductor of the class. That's my job. I know the material, I know all the music, I know the history, and I know all the theory and all of that. Your job is to play the part that you have the skills to play, and then to build your skills so as a group, when we all work together, we become more skilled. So we each have individual skills to work on our own language instrument, and then we have skills as a group that we're going to work on together. And my job is to do two things, is to help you with the skills, to help you grow, and to keep us growing together. So I ultimately am going to direct what is going on. I ultimately have the final say in what is going on. But we are going to try to work as a group and as a community, and that is so new for kids. The first rule that I have to give to my kids always after they find out that my job is to be the maestra, which works out nicely in Spanish because it looks like maestro, is to remind them that in a community that's effective, we have to listen with the intent to understand. And I can do this in the target language, or I can do this in English at the beginning. If the kids have some language, you can simplify. Rule number 1, escuchar para comprender. All right? And it's really important that the kids understand this. And I must say it 5,000 times during the first week, not the year, the week. Listen with the intent to understand, because now this goes back to this concept of one person speaks and the class listens, which again becomes one of the mantras we use over and over and over again. So in order to get kids' attention at the beginning, do you guys use a call and response or a signal at all? This is lovely. When I first started teaching, middle school and high school teachers never used those. It was so fun because you stood up in the front of the room and you went, and they all shut up. And if they didn't, then you were sarcastic and you made one child feel really, really bad, and then they all shut up for the rest of the year, and you could say and do anything you wanted to. And it made it really hard to teach a language class because that's what kids expected would happen. And there are still a lot of classrooms out there like that, where that's the expectation. They sit there, they put on the student screensaver face, all right, and nod when they're supposed to. But that's not what we want. We want them to try, we want them to chip in. But the minute you open the door for kids to speak and they feel comfortable, especially if you're at the middle school, chaos can occur. So the second mantra in my room is, una persona habla, la clase escucha. Es la regla. And they must know that. But because we started with listen in order to understand, there is a reason for one person to talk and everyone else to listen. I have to give reasons to my students, particularly middle schoolers, for them to buy in and create that relationship that John's talking about. If I simply say, these are my rules, bum, 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 then I am not the coordinator of a community. I'm the dictator of a community. And so what I need them to understand is that each person is a human being. And so in order for us to understand this human being or that human being or that human being, we have to listen. All of us have to listen to that human being. That also gives us a great opportunity to stop and say, can you rephrase what he or she just said? Or can you say what he or she just said? Because I was thinking about something else and I missed the last couple of words. And I can model for my kids that I too sometimes drift, and that it's okay to drift and okay to do that. which I just drifted now, and I'm thinking, what was my next point? All right, let's go back here to the PowerPoint. Oh, rules. That's where we were starting with rules. Okay, now let's go. Oh, yeah. Oh, now it's up here. I have to look up here, right, Matt, and move down here. He's looking at me like, this is simple, woman. How come you can't figure this out? Okay. Ding. Woo! This is pretty exciting. And we're starting on slide 44. I don't know how I got there, but let's...
If you go to the bottom, there's a drop-down box.
Oh. Hi. Would you like to help me? Oh, you're going to... Okay.
Come down here.
Oh.
Go.
All the way up. Fantastic. Could we go the other way? Beautiful. Housekeeping details is a great place to start. Beautiful. Thank you so much. I'm going to make you my second official engineer. Matt's engineer number 1. You're engineer number 2. All right. This is a demonstration of jobs. How many of you use jobs in your classroom? All right. If you haven't used jobs in your classroom, there's a lot of ways to use jobs. It's a great way to set up community. It's a great way to take the pressure off of you trying to learn every new thing at once. Bringing in jobs was my last holdout. 2 years ago, I just couldn't do it. I don't know if I'm a control freak or I'm just so used to taking care of things myself that I don't even remember to give people jobs. Or if I give them the job, I just then go off and do what I'm doing myself and forget they have a job. So I actually have a person to remind me to let people do their job. And they very kindly say, Maestra, someone has that job. And and it's not too hard to say in Spanish, so, so-and-so has that job. 1 minute. And here we go. So I've already set up 3. We have a secretary here. We have engineer number 1, which is great if you're technology challenged or in a place that has new technology, or you cannot think of 2 things going on at the same time. And then here's my backup technology person, which is super important because she's closer to here, all right? And if she can help, then it'll take some of the pressure off. I like to do double jobs for 2 reasons. First of all, sometimes kids are absent. And then I don't like to take up class time deciding who's going to do the job. So this way I have 2 engineers, 2 secretaries, 2 whatever. They very rarely are absent on the same day, and I don't have to have a big fight and discussion over who's the substitute for the day. So one way to do that is to have 2. The other way to do that is to have a sub. And it's the sub's job to step in and take over for somebody else's job, which is really nice. So those of you who use jobs, can you raise your hand for me again? All right. So do you have assigned jobs at the very beginning of the year, like in the first week? Do you assign your jobs to your students? Do you do that?
It depends on what the job is.
What's one you might assign early?
This is more like a CI type of a job, but like for classroom management, they're in like pods, and one of their pod jobs is like the table inspector before they leave, and they make sure everything.
Oh, this is a sanity job. Yeah. I mean, CI doesn't mean you're not going to be a teacher anymore. I mean,
a teacher can't do CI, so like I knew that like in the past it always irritated me when I would see everything was in disarray when the kids left, and it like took that stress off of me.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. We have an inspector in my room too, and it does take the pressure off. And if the child doesn't want to be the inspector, at least the inspector can remind me to make the announcement to check around your desk and make sure it's everything. Because I often just teach until the bell stops me, and then I went, oh my gosh, I was going to do this, that, and the other thing, and oh, on that note, is there somebody here who's very time conscious who would be willing to tell me when we only have 5 minutes left? Because I will. Thank you. Oh, and I've got backup. Awesome. Perfect. Because I will forget. And because this is not my normal schedule, usually my classes end at different times, I will really be in trouble if you guys don't help me out. Perfect. Great job. Who else has a job they assigned right at the beginning?
So I just started doing it in February. I meant to do it, and then I just didn't feel right about it, and I kept putting it off, like it wasn't perfect. And then I just jumped in and did it, and it worked really well.
It can at any time.
And so, I have a door person. Like, we have it that we have to keep our doors locked. Well, I didn't want to have to be letting kids in. And so I do a password too, but the door person's job is to go to the door and have the students or admin or teacher
Anybody,
say
yes.
the password if they want to get in. And so,
Awesome.
I'm going to be starting the jobs again at the beginning of this year, but again, I had this list I was developing, and I kept thinking, it's not ready yet, and then finally I kind of implemented it in February, and I adjusted on the fly. I eliminated a job. I used to have a phone answerer, but the person answered the phone, and the secretary was like, who is this? And can you just put Mr. Noble on?
Every time, and I'm like, why do I have a phone person?
So we eliminated that job, and then I never had a mayordomo, jefe, a boss. And so that's a big thing I'm going to do, and I'll have that person also be the sub if people are gone.
Great.
That person will be the...
This sounds like a tiny little thing, Jobs, and maybe this seems like a random group of pieces of information that I'm giving you, but it's really not. All of this comes down to this core of creating a community within the classroom. And when you have a community, you have a need for communication. And I think this is something that's super, super vital that we need to remember. In a CI classroom, our goal is to communicate. That's our goal. And via communication, we will become better communicators. Now, the first part of the communication we want the students to focus on is the listening. That's the first piece. Listen in order to understand. That's why it's one of my first laws that we use in my classroom, because you really do need to observe, watch, and listen in order to find out what's going on in your world. And when you think about it from a personal level, this is an incredible personal skill that you're asking kids to do the minute they come into your classroom. I'm bringing in California, 33 kids into my room. And when they first told me that, I about had a heart attack. So I've got 33 kids in the room, all with different needs, all with different desires, and most of them are not to be in Spanish class at that moment, okay? And so I need them to understand that we're a community and you have something to offer. But every day when you come in, my first request is that you look around the room, that you observe how everybody in the room is doing, and then you listen to find out what's going on. Because what I tell them is, what we do is totally dependent on you. I do make the decisions, I do know the options, but you make the decisions based on your behavior. So if you are listening and you are watching and you are interacting in a positive way, we will do the most positive, fun things imaginable. However, if your skill set that day is not up to observing and is not up to listening, then I will craft an activity that is a little less fun but allows you to demonstrate self-control, because that is my rule number 3. Self-control. Now, this didn't used to be my rule number 3 until I taught middle school. And now I've realized that it always should have been my rule number 3. Okay? And so self-control is the most important thing. And for any human being, self-control is incredibly, incredibly important. I'm not really good at self-control, frankly. It's not my thing. But there are times in life when you use more self-control than others. And we talk about it as a personal skill, as a professional skill, as an academic skill, as a relationship skill. That knowing yourself and being able to control yourself in different situations is an incredible skill. So if you have self-control, you can then speak when you need to speak and be quiet when you need to be quiet. You can listen when you need to listen and tune out when you need to tune out. And so this ability to control what you do, and the concept that every human being has the power to control what he or she does, is incredibly important. Because kids always think they're not in control of anything. Wasn't me. Not my fault. Everything is outside of their control. And part of that is their age. and the situation that they live in. But part of that is an attitude. It's an attitude about, I don't have control, therefore I don't have to have responsibility. If I don't have control, I don't have to be responsible. And my response always is, oh yes, you do have control, and therefore you do have responsibility. If you choose to take the control, all right, it's a whole lot easier than if you just get the responsibility of what you've done. You're always going to face the responsibility of your actions. So why don't you take control of your actions? And then it all comes together. And this is really, really, really important, I think, in a CI classroom, because their growth and their grades depend on their effort in a way that it does in no other class. It's hard to fake growth in language in a CI classroom. You can't fake a grade as easily as you can in other classes, because you're not having them fill out worksheet after worksheet that they can copy or look up. All right? They actually have to humanly, physically listen, pay attention, understand, and respond. And in order to do that, they have to know that they can do it. It's harder to have confidence if you don't have self-control. Think about it. The kids that you know that don't have a lot of self-control really don't have legitimate confidence. Okay? They may have swag, okay? And a lot of other things, BS, a whole lot of other skills that they're able to pull out, but they don't actually have an authentic sense of confidence. And so when you help kids develop self-control, you also help them develop a sense of confidence. And when everybody in the room is developing a sense of confidence, the whole room comes together in a completely different way. So the rules may seem like a silly thing to talk about at the beginning, and they may seem random and disconnected, but they're super, super important. And if you keep talking to the kids about them in a way that they connect with them personally and how it's going to change them and change their lives, and you say, oh my gosh, Karen, that must have been tough this morning, because I know you had 4 cups of coffee and you did not get up and leave and go to the bathroom. I'm really impressed. And it gives you a way to connect to the kids on a much, much greater value. And here I am back to my PowerPoint that I probably am not going to show much of at this rate. How are we doing for time, timers? Oh, now I have 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's see if this worked or I didn't do it right. Oh, nope. All right, so I'll let you in on a secret. My computer crashed a couple weeks ago. And, oh, that's not going to work either. All right, wait, let me go up here. So now if I want to go to the next slide, do I go down here?
Yeah.
Oh, ooh, so cool. All right, so if you need to go to the bathroom like Karen, just go. And get your water and have what you need to eat. And those are Lamingtons if no one's ever had them. And do what you need to do. Dance. We're already videotaping. You don't need to worry about it. Skills. Now, this is the next skill thing we're going to talk about. How many of you ask your students questions? Good. We're off to a great start. Okay. And everybody is always saying to me, oh, questions. Questions are tough. I can do this if I story tell. I can tell a story. I know what I want to say. I know what I want the kids to do. I'm good with the storytelling piece. That part I can put it in language the kids I think are going to understand. But this thing about asking questions, like that circling thing, or how do I ask it? Or I can do it. I can ask every question. I have practiced and practiced and practiced. I have a chart in the back of the room. I know how to ask all the questions. But how do I ask them like a human being? Okay, how do I do that? So I'm just going to, I'm a very bad math student, so I'm just going to throw cards at you and not count. You take what you need. I have a student do this because I never can count right. I mean, I did take calculus, but apparently counting and calculus are not two coherent skills. There we go. I can never make it as an actuary. All right. So if you would take your card and just divide it into 4 sections. They don't have to be like this. You can divide it into 4 sections any way you want to. If you are a drawer, draw. If you don't care about perfection, be a folder. I actually make my kids fold to show them that it's okay if everything doesn't line up. We practice this a few times a year, just because some kids need it. Ta-da, instant lines. Okay. I'm going to count to 5. I need you to have the lines done, even if it's not perfect, by the time I count to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it up. 5. Applause. Woo! It's beautiful. Thank you very much. All right, now, let's go down here. Up at the top, you see 3 words: knowledge, skills, and community. These are the 3 things you're going to collect today. And any time that you go to a conference, you're going to get background knowledge, just good stuff to know. Then you're going to develop skills, things you actually stand up and do. And then 3, underlining all of it, is the sense of community that we have. Un momento. I have a clicker. I wonder if that would work. Oh, that would help. I just hit the pause button. Not so good. Ooh. Perfect. Help! Help! Now it's on autoplay, isn't it? Okay, I'm going to demonstrate for you the hardest skill for me, making a mistake. I cannot tell you how many times in my career I cried in class in front of all of my students because something went wrong and I was unable to bear the thought that I had done something as simple as that incorrectly in front of my students. I'm a crier, and I was so mortified so many times over and over until technology entered the classroom. And then I was crying so often, it just became a little ludicrous. So I decided to try to laugh instead. And then I realized how easy it was to actually make mistakes and laugh. And our kids need to see this, especially if you teach in a high academic performing school. I'm in an IB school right now, and they are up here, and God forbid they should breathe sideways 1 second. If they breathe out of 1 nostril instead of 2, it's a disaster of a day, okay? And everything in these kids' lives is on the level of perfection. And so they need to not just see modeled that laughing at a mistake is okay, we need to practice it. We actually need to do something wrong, like fold paper incorrectly, and then open it up and go, "You did it! Yes!" Okay? And now they're going, "Yes, I perfectly did an imperfect paper." Oh my gosh, that's good. Because that's how they see it, but they need that practice. All right, so each one of the boxes, and it doesn't matter what set they're in, but you need a who, what, where, and what else. And you need to leave a little space. Now, I know this is a tiny little paper, but we don't have a lot of time. I ask teachers to do this. I also ask students to do this for me, and then I collect it because I get a lot of good information. And I generally end up having kids make a poster for me out of all of the collected pieces. Thank you, Matt, for checking the time. He's watching out for me. All right, in the who box, I need you to put between 1 and 3 names that your students would recognize. Now, if you can't think of any, I put a couple up there, but who would your students recognize? 2 names. It could be someone in your school, somebody in politics. If you want to go there, don't put a name down if you don't want to talk about those things. Just 1 or 2. Rick and Morty are cartoon characters. Ever. Yes. And so even when I ask kids to do this, the buzz starts to go. And so I do this at the beginning of the year because I want an activity in which they're going to buzz. And then we have to practice the quiet signal. Okay? So I sneeze, achoo, and they have to say salud, and then they shut up. They must do the shut up part. Okay, super important, and make eye contact with me. Or at least I tell them, if you can't look at me, look at something near me. It's okay if you can't look right at me. I get it. Some days are bad, but look near me so that I know you're kind of with me. Because yes, they want to do this. I promise we're gonna make a big poster. They'll all be up there. Everybody's will be heard, and but I do it actually to get them talking, especially those first period classes that aren't awake yet. I need something to get them buzzing so that we can do that. All right, so you guessed it. We're going to go to where? A couple of places your kids would recognize. I wouldn't necessarily do come and go if I taught high school, but or middle school, but I have to say I can't believe somebody actually gave out the business permit for that. It just cracks me up every time I see it. And yeah, same thing you're going to do with what. Now, what is a little tougher? And nobody asked me yet, so I'm going to offer it right out here. Look at the words that are on your paper now. Are any of those in the target language? My examples weren't, and usually people just follow my example and do that. And that's really what I want you to do. Something that would be recognizable no matter what language you speak. Okay, we're looking here for things that are sort of universally used in language because they are a brand name or a place name or a person's name. So when you do places, all right, I was 22 years old before I realized that, they don't call London, London in Spain. Now, you would have thought somewhere along the line in my 8 years of Spanish education, I would have had a lesson on the names of different cities in Spanish. But if I did, it was not acquired because I was like, Londres.
Yeah.
Londres? What kind of city is Londres? I've never heard of it. Mm-hmm. They're like, you've never, and they're in Spanish, they're saying to me, you've never heard of Londres? How could you have never heard of Londres? Everybody knows of Londres. And then they're starting on, Big Ben, and I'm like, oh, London. They're like, no, Londres. And I'm like, oh, they have different names. All right, so you have what? And then last but not least, and things. Okay, these are a little bit tougher sometimes. But the name of a product that's known by the brand name. And we're going to do a tiny, minute bit of sharing because we don't have a lot of time. In class, I tend to do a lot of circling with this question. And so I start at the beginning with who is a famous person, because it's a cognate, and I can write the sentence on the board, and we can point to it. So other than the people I put on my list, who has a name of a famous person on their paper? Who has? One name of a famous person, please.
Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift is really famous. How many people have heard of Taylor Swift? How many people like Taylor Swift? Yes. All right. Another famous person. Thank you. Selena Gomez. Mm-hmm. Who's prettier? So in your opinion, who's prettier, Selena Gomez or Taylor Swift? None.
I have fifth graders that said that Selena Gomez and Taylor Swift were their wives.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so.
Yes. Why not?
And they had a debate.
Yes.
In Spanish.
Yes, they get very passionate about these things. Don't ask the question. Okay, now this is something a dear friend from Texas told me many years ago. It's kind of like lawyers. Don't ask the question if you're not ready to hear the answer. Okay? Don't ask the question if you're not ready to hear the answer. So I wasn't totally ready to hear neither, okay? But because I asked the question, I had to make myself ready. So, get ready for that, because that's going to happen. So who sings better, in your opinion, Selena Gomez or Taylor Swift? Selena sings. Aha. Now, who else has a singer, a musician on their list? Cardi B. Does Cardi B sing the same music as Taylor Swift? No. Different category. Another musician? Justin Bieber. Yes, he's in all the stories. So I could probably stay for 25 minutes just on the singer. So now what I've done is I've taken a situation which I'm just collecting famous names. I'm getting to know people little by little, and as you respond, everybody's responding. Do can you hear that? So what I would do next is pull out a card, and I would have a rejoinder on here. So if you didn't like Taylor Swift or Selena Gomez, what is a rejoinder that you could have somebody say as a response? Like, I don't like that, or I don't want that. In Spanish or French or your language, what would be a negative? Que asco! How disgusting! Yes, how disgusting. So you've now just become the how disgusting person. Okay? There we go. Rejoinders. Okay.
All this happening in the target language?
Yes.
So
Would
do
you like
level 1 from the very beginning? Or
would you like to see a 3-minute demo of that in level 1?
I have it in my head.
You got it. Yeah.
I'm thinking, is this like my friends too who have had some, or is this
Both.
like ninth graders don't know a
Yes.
word?
Yes.
Okay.
Because if you choose your topics correctly, you see all of these are cognate connected, all right, in my language anyway, and they're brand names, so I don't have to talk about the word table, I don't have to talk about the word dress, I don't have to talk about any of those things because I'm using brand names.
Okay.
But my word might be musician, which is a cognate. So I need another musician. And it also introduces como se llama, and if I just have, se llama whatever, now we're getting a name in. And it's all in context, and all the kids have to say is Selena Gomez, Taylor Swift, Justin Bieber. I'm gonna go, oh, hay un músico, there is one, se llama Justin Bieber. Yeah. And su opinión, what do you think I mean? And su opinión, all right, in your opinion, show me, Justin Bieber, oh, Justin Bieber.
So then if they get stuck, do you run up to the board and write like in su opinión?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
In fact, I would in my room, I would put en su opinión up there. But it depends. Everybody does it their own way. Okay? I only need one kid in the class to understand it. If one kid in the class understands it, if Jason's the only one that got en su opinión, woo! See, in your opinion. En su opinión, Justin Bieber or Justin Bieber? En su opinión, Justin Bieber. En su opinión, what am I asking her? In your opinion, nice job. En su opinión, Justin Bieber or Justin Bieber? Sharon, en la opinión de Sharon, Justin Bieber. En la opinión de Jason, Justin Bieber. See how I can do that?
I totally get like how it works with like the CI with the person you're talking to, but what happens when you have all of those sort of like, oh yeah, in English, and they're like, no, she's this, and then you have like all the little
Cool.
side conversations.
I go, achoo! Clase, una persona habla, la clase escucha. And they know the gestures, like we teach them at the beginning. Una persona habla, la clase escucha. All right.
What happens if someone doesn't know who Justin Bieber is? Do you run up and get like a picture?
No, I say, Google it when you get home. And if they really can't stand it, I let them go out in the hallway and Google it. And then they come back in. But middle schoolers, sometimes they can't let go. But yeah,
One
to
thing
do
like in
that.
my district, we're undertaking poverty work next year. We have really diverse communities. Like our Burmese refugees that were born in Thailand may not
Beautiful.
know who Justin Bieber is.
Ah,
Or
that's
we have
awesome. What a
just
great
seen-
point. This is a really great point. All right, so now you've got this choice that you're doing here. This has to be really limited. And instead of eliciting them from the kids, you're going to provide them for the
Okay.
kids. And you're going to pick one person at a time that you think they should know, that would be important for them to know in this culture to be functional, that you can probably make sure you can say good things about at least one person. And then you go very slowly. You do the less is more, little baby steps. You put the picture up in the PowerPoint, and then you just give little bits of information. And that person almost becomes a part of the class. They become a member of the class. Or, go ahead. Oh, 5 minutes! She's waving at me like I have something to say, and I'm like, oh, crud, 5 minutes. Now down to 4 because it took me a minute to figure out what she was saying.
So you literally have the kids do this.
I do.
And then you collect it so you have, like, things to go
Yes.
off of.
Yes, I collect it, and then I have some, those kids that always want to do something for you, or the kids that don't want to do anything, and you need to get them to do something. All right, so I have a list of things I have kids do, and that is one of them. And what I actually do is I have them make a big poster of who, a big poster of where, a big poster, a one of each one, and then they just write the names on, and they go through the cards, and they write it down. And if they are worried about spelling, we fix it. And I usually actually have them do it on the whiteboard. So if we need to move it or change it or whatever, we can do that.
I do something kind of like this, and it really helps me stay connected to current pop culture because I'm like, oh,
Tom Cruise, and they're like, who the hell is that?
Yeah.
Morty, and I'm like, who the hell is that?
Yeah.
So it really does help us stay current, so when we're, 30 years down the road, we know who's
Yeah.
famous.
And truthfully, when I do this with the class, I just do one box a day. I wouldn't do all 4. I would just start with one box. I would start with the who, and then I'd set up the procedure. Now, in one class period, I have people with jobs. All right, I have people giving ideas. We're doing listen in order to understand. We're doing one person speaks and the class listens, which I will tell you they still don't do in June. Okay, you're not teaching for June. You're teaching for graduation. Okay, FYI. And so, how many of you have children of your own? Okay, how many of you teach 12 or 13-year-olds, or your kids have been 12 or 13 that you teach? Okay. There is this enormous similarity between 2-year-olds and adolescents. I mean, okay, they're fascinated with pee and poop. Okay. They have to do everything 1,000 times over and over and over again, and they just have to push your buttons as many times as they can because that's what they're about. So my son, when he was not quite 2, this is gonna date me. He would run to the television because we had one of those big old box sets, on the floor back in the day, and he would run over and turn the volume up with a knob. You used to do it like that, okay? He'd turn the volume up with a knob, and then he would hit the channel off so it would make white sound. Have you ever heard the white sound that TV makes? Whenever. And he would look at me and go, before he did it, uh-oh. Yeah. And to me, I have to look at the 13-year-olds in my room and go, okay, this is a child 19 months old in a very big body. And he's programmed right now to do this. Okay, he's programmed right now to do this. He has to look at me, give me a little wink in his eye, and then go, I gotta poop right now. Hey, teacher, I gotta poop. Okay, and yeah, so there are really these incredible similarities. But the bottom line is, in one little tiny lesson, you can build in all of those little basic sorts of things. And I don't know if you noticed today, I did a lot of stopping and starting, a lot of going back, a lot of trying to make connections. If you start the beginning of the year with that kind of a thing, with your kids knowing that I'm directing the class based on your responses, not on my PowerPoint. Okay, that's new for them. They're used to, we need to get from slide A to slide B. I know what's on slide A through double Z. Okay, it doesn't matter to me in what order I get to them, because we're going to reuse and recycle and reuse and recycle and reuse and recycle these every single day. And so that is, to me, the greatest difference between starting a class in a linear fashion and starting a class in a spiraling CI fashion. Is that what are the basic skills? Get that in your head. What is it you want kids to know? Get that in your head. And then do an activity in the target language that makes them use one of those skills. And go round and round and round until you get what you need. And eventually you build a strong community and strong kids and strong language, and that's about the time we have. So sorry, people.
I have a question.
Yes.
Because I'm still kind of new at all this. You talked a lot about the lens of acquisition taking a long time for parents and administrators.
Yes.
And then you just said teaching, not just for June, but teaching to graduation.
Yeah.
How do you help that cultural shift when you have squirmy little ninth graders and they're thinking, I just got to get 2 years in just to get to college, or I just need the credits?
Beautiful. I start by telling them the very first day that I don't teach a class that I want them to get over. Because they often take, I just got to get this over with. And I say, yeah, I understand where you're coming from, but I care too much about you to teach you a class that you're just going to forget. So FYI, that's not where we're going. And I just, in English, and I come back to that over and over again. And I say that to parents at open house, and I say that to administrators, and I say that to kids over and over again, is you may walk out of here, all right, with some Spanish, but that's not really my goal. My goal is for you to be a better person and to change the world for the better. Because that's what I think every single kid, every single person can do. And it's my job to tell them that. I mean, maybe they don't think it's my job to tell them that, but I do. And so that's how we do it. And yes, in a school where people are about grades and checking off the boxes, that's tough. Oh, Robin, come on in. But yes, you are training. And I'm going to tell you, don't you think that teaching for CI is the same way? Like you're constantly teaching to be better next week because you forgot this week what it was you were doing to be better. So we're not only just teaching the kids for June, we're training ourselves for June too, and graduation and retirement and beyond. So it's this constant thing of what makes me a better person today in the room. And that's also a really handy thing for behavior. You know, I often say to the kids, I'm not seeing your better person today. Okay, I can tell this is not your better person. Is there a reason why it's not your better person that you could share with me? If not, I understand. I get you don't have to share that personal stuff with me. But if I can help you today be the better person, let me know what I can do to help you today to be the better person. Because we all have those days when we're not our better person. And I get to say that to them. I'm sorry, guys. I didn't sleep last night. I am not going to be the better person today. I'm going to try my hardest, but you may not see the better me. So if I'm not that, would you remind me? Okay? And they will. Oh, you're not the better person right this moment. You know, I'm like, you're right. So sorry about that. So thank you. Feel free to go up, get a drink, go see somebody else. This is such a good conference in so little time. Yay!